Brian, in here we've got the bronze turkeys, and that's a Holland white, a white Holland, and then right here. Right, let me zoom in on her. Oh, you're running away. All right, that's the Narragansett hen.
These are all. Here's a bronze tom, tom.
Okay.
There's a black tom.
Okay, as different than the bronze because it's all black. And then
that's a Narragansett tom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first one of him I've seen today or noticed. All right, and then we've got the bourbon reds are hanging back.
There's a bourbon red hen right there.
Right.
There's another one.
Right. You can zoom in on her maybe. That's a nice looking tom back there.
Strutting.
Yeah. Look a little more. Well, how do you stay clean when the birds go outside?
Like Dr. Beyer said from K-State, I mean, they have confinement birds also over there. He says, you know, he doesn't know how many times he's gone out and a sparrow has been sucked through the vent system and sparrow blood goes all over the building. You know, a virus, you can put 1 million viruses on the bottom of a little tiny bit of feather or a little flake of dust.
Yeah, well, or flies can.
Yeah. I think the transporting of those viruses actually is a far greater risk if you're sharing trucks, employees, you know, breeders, buildings. If you're within an industry, there's lots of moving and transporting. I think that's where a lot more of the risk comes than letting them outside.
Well, then, like one place that you guys would be vulnerable. What about when the turkey truck comes in November?
We make sure that the turkey trucks are cleaned and steamed before they were brought here. The truck is brought on and we isolate it up there. We load into that truck and it goes back out.
Because a lot of your growing birds aren't physically here; they're at another farm.
Oh yeah,
other farms.
Oh yeah, there are 5 different other farms.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have set up a system. In fact, you know, anybody who tells me they haven't faced any disease in the turkey world is either stupid, lying, or hasn't done it long enough. And I'd say about 6 years ago, I had MG. And so I had the guys from Missouri State and K-State and everybody come, and we set up a program because at that time, you know, I knew I had to save the genetic line I had, but I also knew I had to kill everything on the farm to get rid of it. So what we did, we set up about a 2-year program in which, you know, that's one nice thing about these old birds. They, even with that, they continued to lay. I continued to get fertility. And
but that's transmitted through the egg, though.
Yes, but we set up a program where we cleaned the eggs, where we actually heated the eggs and used the Tectrol, put them through the egg washers, heated the eggs, and hatched those eggs, sent those turkeys then to another farm. Then we had testers come in again at the other farm, and they tested and they found no MG, no MS, no anything. After we did this through what the guys at Pennsylvania State said for us to do, and then we killed everything on the farm, closed the farm down from any birds for 2 months, and we came in and cleaned all the buildings. They even came in with these big machines where they heated the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and did all that, and tested the birds again, and then moved them back from the farm.
Huh. Now, at that time, how many of the breeds did you have of turkeys?
I had the bronze, the the White Hollands, what we have now,
Okay.
except for the blacks. I've never had the black breeders here. They've been kept at another farm over at Tampa, Kansas. Danny Williamson, who's worked with me probably for about 10 years, decided he was going to focus on improving the quality of the blacks. And so he's kept the blacks over there. I did have a couple other farms that kept the Narragansetts, but they weren't doing a good job. And so I had to bring them back.
So you're the sole repository in this operation for 4 of the breeds.
Yes, yes. And now I am getting ready this year to start working with another one of the farmers about 3 hours north of here, Marilyn Metzger, and she's going to start working with the Narragansetts, because we do need someone, because it's very difficult for me to keep this many varieties and to try to do justice. You know, it'd be much easier if I had just the bronze or something, but at this point I still can't let them go because there's no place for them to go.
Now I know that some of your breeding is to preserve the you're selecting for the traits that are specific to that breed and want to preserve those traits in the breed. Now, but what about the whole, are you worried about restricting the gene pool by doing that, since you have a relatively small number of birds to begin with?
Right now, there was a book Dr. Marsden wrote called, Turkey Production, which was done. His first edition of that came out in the 30s, 40s, and there was more in the 50s. And I more or less have followed his protocol and his program, because much of what he wrote according to these varieties. And he said as long as you kept at least 200 to 300 breeders within a marketing, within a group, that you could pretty well maintain a closed system. And
without worried about breeding
diversity,
because you're actually using the same fathers in some cases for several years, right?
No, I usually change. The only time I'll use a 3 or 4 year old Tom is if I've got a particular Tom that has a characteristic or has something that I really think is important in maintaining. Sometimes I will keep the old Toms just because, part of our program, part of our farm system is that we maintain birds for a longer period of time. And a lot of our customers really do appreciate that, that we not care. I mean, I don't want to say bad against what the industry does, nothing is that, but that we still maintain some of these birds for longer periods of time. And sometimes we maintain birds, even though they aren't exceptional males, and we sort of feel they've earned their keep and they get to live here until they die. But they're really not a big part of our production program, because if you're going to get good egg production, good fertility out of these old standard breeds, basically a year-old Tom will give your best fertility. And usually your best fertility and best egg production is going to be a 2 or 3 year old hen. Now, even though that pullet may lay more eggs that first year that she goes into production, percentage-wise, what happens is that a lot of those pullet eggs out of those the first few, maybe 20 that she lays, won't be fertile. The eggs will be undersized, they won't be fertile because they haven't quite caught on, because we do all natural breeding. So even though she may lay a few more eggs, that 2 or 3 year old hen who may lay 20 less eggs than the 1 year old pullet
may produce more poults.
Yeah, she's going to produce as many or even more, because she's better, and her first eggs are better shaped and greater fertility.
And because of your marketing window, you're really only interested in about 2 months worth of egg laying. You don't care whether or not they lay for 6 months or so.
In fact, we will continue to get eggs into June and July and even part of August. We've got a few eggs still now.
Now, do you sell any of those, or
all the way? We just don't sell them. Occasionally, we have sold eggs to some local people just to hatch a few turkeys for themselves
Right.
late, but we don't sell it until we know what we have that we're going to need to be able to fill next year's market, or that year's market. I mean, what we need in production.